China is on track to add new coal-fired plants that will equal the EU's entire coal power capacity, ignoring global calls to reduce carbon emissions. Coal station monitoring group Global Energy Monitor has released a report finding China's increase in coal-powered capacity is so great it is offsetting declines elsewhere. Well, let's speak to Ted Nace, who is the founder and executive director of Global Energy Monitor, and he joins us now live from San Francisco. Very good evening to you. What are the statistics, number of stations, the amount of emissions?
Well, we have, as you said, China is adding enough coal plants to equal the entire European Union. And I mean, this is extremely disappointing because the energy transition is actually going so well elsewhere in the world. I mean, even here in the United States under Trump, we're down, coal plants are being retired at twice the rate that they were under Obama because they're just not economical anymore. I mean, even India, which was touted as a growth spot for coal, 70% of the new capacity in the last 3 years has been from renewables. And you see that story across the world. Southeast Asia, their construction of new coal plants is down by 3/4 in the last 3 years. So China is really diverging from the global pattern.
Why?
Well, it's an industry that has tremendous momentum. And it's something that they're better at doing than anyone else in the world. And I think it's a sort of source of national pride, but it's also a source of local economic stimulus. And I think that's the real reason. The central government has not been enthusiastic, and the permitting is actually down in China. But what happened is, for a brief period about 5 years ago, they handed over permitting power to local authorities. And during a short span of about 18 months, they permitted about 4 or 5 years worth of coal. So that large slug of permitted coal plants is now coming to pass, are now being finished and built. And that's why China right now has such a big boom. Very unexpected.
Do they need them?
No, the average coal plant in China is actually operated less than half the time.
Right, OK. And their electricity grid oversupplied?
Their electricity grid's oversupplied, and the danger you get in that situation is if you keep overbuilding, they're going to lock out their own growth sector, their own solar and wind, which is also world leading. But by overbuilding so much coal, it's going to really inhibit the clean energy transition that China really ought to be leading.
Mr. Nace, you often hear here in Australia, in Europe, I'm sure it's the same in America. What's the point of us doing so much if China does nothing? It seems pointless for so many people around the world to be making that effort when China cancels it.
Well, we can only hope that China will come to their senses. I mean, this isn't good economically. It's certainly not good for the environment. It's not good for the people in Chinese cities who are regularly complaining about air pollution. It's just a bad idea. And it comes from one sector having so much political and economic clout. But we've seen this story elsewhere. I mean, as I said, even in the United States, with so much political force in favor of coal, the economics are so poor now that coal plants are retiring at faster than ever. And, I think ultimately the economics of renewables are going to win out.
OK. Did China not sign up to the Paris Climate Agreement? I know Donald Trump has said he's not in that anymore, but did China sign up?
Yes, and China has committed to topping out its emissions by 2030, but we really need to do more than that. We need to be down worldwide by over a half by 2030. And China, with so many new coal plants, has a particular challenge to start phasing out its coal fleet and replacing it with solar, wind, and battery power, which is now economically competitive everywhere in the world.
Does China not have the same that we have here in Australia, you do in America, climate activists that are lobbying their communist government?
I think that the biggest political force that's pushing the energy transition is actually the urban population of China, which has really suffered a lot. I mean, life expectancies in northern China, where the coal is used the most heavily, are 7 years less than in areas where coal use is less in China. And as China's middle class, becomes more and more empowered, you might say, I think that force is expressed in society. Now, China has a different way of doing everything than, in other countries, but I just don't think that they can deny that coal is not really benefiting people anymore. It's benefiting a narrow sector of industry.
OK, and let's just look at the flip side. Is China investing at all in renewables?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, China is the world leader manufacturer of both solar and wind. So, two new sectors are rising. An old sector is not letting go. It's a classic economic story. And, it's still the future has yet to be written. But China is such a large part of the global energy economy that what happens in China truly does almost overwhelm what happens everywhere else. You were right when you said earlier that sometimes we wonder why what we do matters. Of course, it does matter. But what's happening in China right now is a tremendous drama, and it does affect us all.
Ted Nace from Global Energy Monitor, thank you.
Thank you very much.